Okay, here we go. Factoring trinomials. Now, factoring is just what you think it is. It's the opposite of multiplying. So if you look here on this screen, you have x plus 2 times x plus 3. And when we're working from left to right, we're multiplying. Now we're going to talk about factoring, which is working from x squared plus 5x plus 6 back to these two factors. So it's like a little game. And if you think about this, if you look at the x squared term and there's a 1 in front, then you can follow these rules. Simply realize that there's got to be a number that multiplies together to be 6 and adds together to be 5. So let's practice factoring this x squared plus 11x plus 24. We are trying to think of what two numbers multiply together to be 24. So you have 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. Which of these two numbers added together give you the middle coefficient of the x term? So which ones of these add together to be 11? That would be 3 and 8, where both of those are positive. So we know right here that the factors are x plus 3 and x plus 8. You can always multiply them back out to double check, and yep, we got it right. What about if we are factoring x squared plus bx plus c? So this is just a generalization telling you what we've already worked on. So there's some things to look for. If both 10 and 16 are positive, or in the general case b and c are positive, then both of the factors are positive. If b is negative and c is positive, both of the last two terms are negative. So those are some things to remember while you're practicing factoring. By the way, if factoring takes you a while at first, it is something that you get faster and faster at when you practice it. So if we factor x squared plus 2x minus 15, where c is negative, then one of the last two terms has to have a different sign. So then we have one addition and one subtraction. So look at this, a squared plus 6ab plus 8b squared. Nothing changes because we added another variable. Everything stays the same. We're asking what two things multiply together to give you 8b squared and add together to give you 6ab. You know the b is going to be there, so you can just focus on the 8 and the 6. What two numbers multiply together to give you 8? 2 and 4, and they add together to give you 6. So that works out fine. And all signs are addition, so they remain addition. There are times when some polynomials cannot be factored. And just like when numbers like 17, 13 can't be factored, they're called prime. Polynomials are called prime also. By the way, very few, if any, homework problems are going to be prime, so I'm not about tricking you. But there are situations where they are called prime. So let's take a look at identifying a prime polynomial. That is, you've gone through and you've said what numbers multiply together to give you negative 14 and add together to give you 6. You come up with none. You can identify it as being prime. One thing you should always check is if there's a greatest common factor that you can factor out first. So looking at 18x to the fourth minus 30x squared, what can you factor out of 18 and 30? And what can you factor out of x to the fourth and x squared? So you can factor out 6x squared out of both of those, and it leaves you with, down here at the bottom, 3x squared minus 5. And so you always want to start by factoring out any greatest common factor. Now, factoring a polynomial completely, ask yourself, what can I take out of each of these? You can take out a 3x. 3x is one of the factors. Now you have x squared plus 7x plus 12. You're going to ask yourself, what two numbers multiply together to give you 12 and add together to give you 7? And when you do that, you can see that 3 and 4 meet the criteria for the multiplication and the addition. So now we can take the 3x that we already factored out and change this to x plus 3, x plus 4. Now it is fully factored. So it's really important that you check out if you can take out a greatest common factor, especially when there's not a 1 in front of the x squared term. And remember, after you take out a greatest common factor, it may or may not be able to be factored further, so you need to ask yourself to check what can be multiplied and added together. Now, if you have a leading coefficient in front of x squared that is negative, you need to divide everything by -1, or in this case, -2, because you want the leading coefficient to be positive. So once you took out the -2r squared, it left you with r squared minus 9r plus 20. That can then be factored further into negative 2r squared, r minus 5, and r minus 4. You can always take a look at your graphing calculator and table to verify your work. Did you, in fact, have the original equation match the new factors multiplied together and the tables are equal to one another? So in summary, if the leading coefficient of a polynomial is positive and the greatest common factor is not 1, first factor out the greatest common factor. If the leading coefficient is negative, make sure you factor out a -1 or a larger negative number so that the remaining part is positive for you to try and factor. Factoring just comes with practice. Keep trying. And remember, you can always check your work with factoring by multiplying everything back out to see if you end up with what you started with. That's 6.4. Have a great day.